So I took a trip to Uganda last October. I was there for 2 weeks. And so what I did before I even went, I even had to look on a map. I'm like, I know it's in Africa, but where exactly is Uganda, you know? So here, hopefully you can see this, to give you a little bit idea of you know, what the MMU students are dealing with, what their lives are like. So this is their country. Uganda is located just north of Lake Victoria, surrounded by the Congo, Sudan, and Kenya. When I visited, I flew into Entebbe, which is 40 miles like southwest of Kampala. Kampala is the capital city, and we had to travel, you know, in a small van with all these bags and stuff, you know, no air conditioning or anything, to Kampala, basically because the geography in Kampala is really hilly, so there isn't an airport there. They put it in Entebbe. So traveled to Kampala, stayed overnight. Then the next day, Valentina Prado went with me as well, because some of you guys know her. We traveled from Kampala to Fort Portal. It should maybe take, if we were in the US, I don't know, 2 hours maybe. It took us just about all day to get there. The roads are dirt. If it rains, it's very difficult to get through. And the roads are really dangerous. There's a lot of traffic. There's really not stoplights or stop signs. So it's just difficult to get around. It takes a lot longer than you think that it would. So Fort Portal is where Mountains of the Moon University is. It's a relatively rural community. It gets a lot of tourism just because it's very beautiful. The mountains and the scenery are really, really nice. So it's a rural setting, sort of outside of the city. Here's the population of Uganda. Religions, most people are Christian. Basically, this stems back to, you know, the colonization days. And also when you're traveling, you see a lot of religious people going over to convert people in Uganda to become Christian, for example. A lot of people I met on the plane were missionaries. The GDP per capita is about $300, so that's per year, so that's not very much, right, if you compare it to what we make here. And the rural areas depend a lot on farming for their main sources of income. As you're going down the road, you'll see people with like a bike full of bananas, for example. They're bringing the bananas to market to sell. A lot of the trucks that you see are carrying agricultural products and whatnot. So they really depend on agriculture for their well-being. And if you think about, you know, climate change in particular is affecting what they can grow, when their yields. So it's a big part in Uganda, a problem in Uganda. And most of them, if you talk to them, they may not know the science behind climate change, but they know something's changing. Some of them will say, oh yeah, I've seen the snow disappear on the mountain every year. It seems like there's less and less snow. So they have these reference points where they understand climate change, even if they don't understand all the specific parts to it. It's one of the poorest nations in the world. Almost 40% live less than on $1.25 a day. And there's also a lot of languages spoken there. So there's tribal languages. So every part of Uganda that you go to will have different languages that you will hear. However, they speak mostly English when they kind of go outside of their family units or villages. The idea is if you speak in English, they won't know what tribe you're from, and it sort of avoids some confrontation between those tribes. And so why I went, I was part of this project called Empower Design. A professor named Dr. Abigail Mechtenberg, who's now at Clark University in Massachusetts, began this research project. She works with Father John. She also works with another professor, Moses Muzazi, who's at a different university, Makerere in Kampala. So the idea is, you can go to this website, by the way, to check out this project. You can see here the dark green, the dark green colors are where, you know, more than 99% of the population have reliable electricity. The reds are places where, in the rural areas anyway, it's less than like 2% of the population are hooked up to the electric grid. Okay, and even if you are hooked up to the electric grid in Uganda, you don't know when the power is going to go out. There's blackouts all the time. The power system can't supply the demand that's there. So this is like the main problem we were trying to address. we went and we taught workshops. We used Legos, that's what's showing in this picture here. Here's the students using Legos, and we give them sort of the basic physics of how to generate electricity. So it's the idea of having a magnet and moving electrons. So they learn like this basic knowledge. They build prototypes of different devices like a hand crank, for example, using a small magnet, and they learn sort of the basics of generating electricity. Then the idea is that they'll go and take that knowledge, use materials in their local economies to build these bigger prototypes that will actually help them generate electricity and to not depend on the electric grid. You can see this is just a picture of the workshop classroom. You know, very minimal, like wooden desks. It's a concrete floor, maybe a chalkboard. Not a lot of, there's no computers or anything in these classes, no projectors, nothing like that. And so this is a picture of a woman. She and her friends here are all HIV positive. Basically, they've been left, their husbands have died. They've contracted HIV through their husbands. And so they're left to kind of figure out how they're going to survive with each other. So what they do is they make jewelry. They also make these wicker like baskets. Here, what they did was they made what we were hoping to be a blade for a wind turbine. So the idea is like metal's really heavy, right? And it's difficult to transport. It's difficult. You need a lot of wind to get it moving. So we were trying to use locally made materials that would benefit these women, but also benefit, making power for these people. So here's some of the actual prototypes. So Abigail Mechtenberg, she goes to Uganda 3 times a year, maybe for the last 5 years. I was lucky enough to go once on one of her trips. So she goes back from time to time and sort of sees how the project is going. The idea is once we teach sort of the basics of generating electricity, each technician is then supposed to go and teach someone else. That's sort of the contract that you have. So it's supposed to be a sustainable project that isn't dependent upon white people to coming over and telling them how to do it. It's supposed to be sustainable on their own accords. So these are prototypes that of those devices that we first made with Legos, but these are like the bigger scale. So this is a hand crank. You basically just turn a wheel, it generates light, and it seems really simple, but just being able to do that in a hospital when the power goes out to finish a surgery at night, or maybe a woman's in labor at night, at least you have light to finish what you're doing. Here's a wind turbine. This is made out of metal, and it wasn't made very well. I mean, it was one of the first prototypes they made. So we were going to try to replace these metal things with basket weaving blades that the women made. This is a merry-go-round. Basically, kids at a hospital, for example, would hop on and twirl around, and this would generate electricity. It would either charge a battery, for example, that you could use later on. Another type of this would have a long extension that a cow would turn. It's not cruelty to animals or anything. You would switch the cows and stuff. But you'd be able to charge multiple batteries or generate electricity for a small business. And this is a bicycle generator. They were able to make the TV work while someone was pedaling a bicycle. These are our students. They all have their manuals in their hands there, looking very studious. While I was there, I had the opportunity to present my research in front of a few classes. You can see the class size. So I don't know how many there were. There were near 200 students in the class. Pretty intimidating when you walk in, and you go up to speak. It's very overwhelming. We had to bring our own projector. They don't have a projector. We actually hung a sheet. It's hard to see. We hung a sheet on the wall so that it would work. And actually power was out, so they had to use their generator. So we paid, and this fuel was really expensive to run the generator, so that we could run the slideshow to tell them about our research. So it was really cool. I got to hear their perspective on what I was talking about with climate change. So this was really beneficial for me as a person, and also just for my research to gain credibility in what I talk about. Final. These pictures are my favorite pictures from the trip. They're just the kids. The kids are really great. They treat you like a celebrity. They just want to wave, and if you wave back, they just get to smile and run away and want to tell their mom that we waved back, These little girls, for example, were on their road as they all want their picture taken because I don't think there's a lot of mirrors, so you take their picture and then you show them on digital camera what it looks like, and they think it's awesome. So I don't know, I took a couple pictures, I show it to them, they get really happy. This group of children here, we just happened to walk up along the road and they were standing out. They wanted their picture taken, but this little boy, who's probably much older than he looks, was really scared. I don't think he'd ever seen a camera before, so he started crying when I was taking the picture, and I had to say, it was okay, it's just a picture, here you are, and so that took care of it. They tend to sing a song when you walk out, and they see you, they say, how are you, how are you? They sing it, because that's what we say, right? When you see someone, you say, hi, how are you, right? So they're used to hearing that over and over again, I guess, and say, hi, how are you, how are you? They're constantly asking for treats. They also ask for pens. Think about if you're a kid and you didn't have anything to color with or write with. So next time I go, if I go again, I'll buy a lot of pens and I'll give them to all the kids. Just something you wouldn't think about unless you heard that. And then here's Valentina and I with a few of the kids up in this picture here. So that was my trip. The idea is to kind of make you guys think about, I'm not trying to do this maybe I am a little bit, to make you feel a little bit, think a little bit more about the people who are in Uganda. They're not just player roles, right? They're people, and if you don't communicate with them, you may get the idea that, oh, maybe they're not communicating because they think, they don't want to talk to an American, or, maybe they just want to be selfish, but that's not it at all. These guys, they don't have a lot of money, but they have a lot of social capital. All they talk about is their families, they talk about their friends, and even if they can't afford to have another kid, they do because their family unit is just the most important thing to them. So just kind of remember that, and I think that'll help if you do choose to be a pen pal or communicate with the students at MMU. Keep in mind some of these things. They're just living totally different lives than we are here, and so that may reflect in a lot of the things that they talk about. So I think that's all I have for right now.